And I also wanted to talk about having a 450 after 20 years off a bike, which is what I've done. Okay, let's find some gears. Okay. Now, it's been raining cats and dogs here for like 2 or 3 weeks, and this is the first sunny afternoon, and it's so wet in here, but we'll see how we go. So no promises on any fancy riding. A lot of these puddles, you've no idea how deep they are. Let's see. Nah, that's nothing. So having a 450 after a long time off a bike, I've ridden this thing 30 hours in the last month. Every other afternoon I've been out on this thing here in BY Forest, and I've got to say I am so glad that I went for a 450. Now a 350 4-stroke, or even better a 300 2-stroke, would be the ideal woods bike for me and for anybody. It's all you want out here. You don't need 450 power going through this slop. You want a nice light bike that's nimble, not too much power, and doesn't wear you out. The big bike, the 450, does wear you out. I'm pretty fit. I do a lot of gym. I'm training now specifically so I can keep up with this bike. But I'm not a big guy. I'm 90 kilos. I paddle, I mountain bike, I do a bit of gym. For any average guy that's 90 plus kilos, or even less and still fit, this bike's perfectly fine. It's got a dry weight of 110. It definitely feels heavier than a 250, even though it might be the same physical weight. When I swapped recently with my brother's KX 250F, it was dramatically lighter to ride. So there would have only been a few kilos in the overall weight, but just the inertia of the engine or whatever the hell it is, this just feels like a big bike. But for this kind of riding, where I'm just cruising along talking to people on my camera, it's perfect. Right now, I couldn't even tell you what gear I'm in. That's probably fifth. And I'm just chugging, and this thing will chug all day. I think I've stalled it once. It will just pull from, like, that's probably 4th gear or something. Wouldn't even know. I'd have to work it out. But there's just endless torque. So you really can be lazy and just chug this thing around. Now bear with me, I've got to think about this because I'm not quite sure where I am. Yeah, that's the way out. Yes. Okay. And you'll hear in my riding, I'm riding very lazy. My dad said to me when he watched one of my videos, you're just chugging around in the same gear. You're going very slow. So he's used to a bit more revvy bike. My brother's got 250s and stuff. He's had bigger bikes, but he's, tends to get littler bikes for the bush. And it makes a lot of sense for a bush-only bike. But given I ride this thing into the bush, and I've got to do about 10-15 minutes on the road to get in and out, the 450 was the obvious choice. This thing on the road, even with a 14-tooth front sprocket, so I've geared it up a little, 100 k's is about as fast as it really wants to go. It doesn't really sound happy beyond that. It'll do it. I don't even know what the top speed is, but I don't want to blow this thing up. I love this bike. I want to do a lot of kilometres on it. I'm already on to my 2nd oil change, about to do my 3rd, and that's in probably 5 weeks period. So, and I'm busy doing work, and every spare minute I'm out on this thing. So being able to ride in and out of the forest is just a godsend. It's just made it so convenient, and I'm just riding so very much. But regardless of that, I wouldn't say you have to have a 450, but if you want a lazy bike and you're some sort of reasonable bike ability or some sort of reasonable size, I'm a very average rider. My brother, he's a bit of a gun. He's one of these guys that's flat out everywhere, was good when he was born, and he's just good at it. So he doesn't worry about tomorrow rider. I'm very much worried about tomorrow rider. So I've got all the safety gear on, I'm taking the time. I'm just going slow here today because I'm talking on the camera. I don't feel like painting around. I'll ramp it up in a minute, but it makes it a bit harder to hear the camera. But for this chucking around like this, where I'm just going somewhere, I haven't even really thought it through, I'm just chucking about, this engine will last forever. It's just so under stress. You know, it'll do hundreds of hours, I reckon, before I've got to do anything to it. I would suggest a 450 is a great bike to buy, just for a fire road sort of bike like this. If you're doing enduros or full-on stuff, or you don't get excited until you're off the bike and got three mates trying to drag a bike up the hill, then you know you want a lighter bike. This would be a freaking nightmare for that sort of stuff. I'm sure a good rider could do it. I wouldn't even consider taking this thing into enduro sort of stuff. I might a bit later on, and I'll have to go around a motocross track on this, but I know it's going to destroy me because it's just a beast to hang on to. But it's exciting to have that bit of extra power. This bike is a little bit scary, you know. I just can't tell you how much it is to have that bit extra power. I only ever use a fraction of what this thing will do, but it's just cool to have that blast when you need it. It's, you know, I think if I had a smaller bike, I'd be trying to mod it to get that power, whereas with the 450 you're already there. These things stock are a bit sad, but you know, uncork it, put an ECU on it, and holy shit, for a single cam motor, plenty of power. Certainly not motocross snappy. It doesn't want a wheel stand everywhere. You've actually got to make it do a wheelie, but it'll do it, no problem at all. So I'd have to say, there's a few videos I've seen online of people saying, oh, you don't need a 450, you don't need all the power. It's all in this. It's all in your right hand. Just don't wind it on. But to be able to, that's just the duck's guts, man. It's so much fun. You know, you just think, whoa, this thing will go. And one thing I've really noticed having a bigger bike, having come back from a long time off a bike, is that I'll get stuck in some mud, or I'll get into a bog, or I'll go into some grass, and there'll be a bloody great mud hole. Before I know it, I'm in the middle of it. And this thing, I'll just wrap it on, and it's thrown itself across the mud hole and already climbing out before I even know what's going on. So I've got to say, having that power and having the bike that will just keep its direction like this thing will, it's phenomenal. So for anyone that's tossing up, oh, which bike do I get, which bike do I get, I was dead set on getting the 350, but I looked at all the mods and I had more than one guy on YouTube say, I wish I'd bought the 450, I wish I bought the 450. And here in Australia, they're all available, they're all road registrable. It was a no-brainer. There were 350s for sale everywhere. There were no 450s for sale second hand. They were very, you know, much harder to find. So that tells me something. 350s are going up for sale with low kilometres. People have got them and thought, maybe it's not quite what I wanted. And the 450s seem to hold their value, and this was harder to find. I spent weeks and weeks finding this and shipped it up from Sydney on a truck, and yeah, it's just been bulletproof. So anyone that's tossing up the idea, well, I'd have to say, as a B grade rider, or probably even C grade rider, reasonably fit, but you know, I grew up on dirt bikes, so I'm reasonably confident on a bike, but I'm not God's gift. You know, I can't do a lot of tricks. I'm just chugging around this kind of stuff. In the single track it's more fun, but it's so wet right now, all the single track's screwed, so I'm just sticking to main roads that I know won't be totally, you know, ruined. There's only so much red clay you can handle. I'm going to go down to a section of red clay that I'm exploring, so I'll film that and we'll see how we go. But for this kind of stuff, we're just chugging around adventuring. Unreal. 450 is just unreal. So I'll shut up, I'll do a bit of riding. I'm not sure how much of this I'll edit in and edit out. But yeah, if it's a question of a smaller bike or going for a 450, well, you know, 450 all day, man. It's too much fun. everywhere. Down here, I think. Yeah. Oh, mud. Oh,